Everyone's talking about who's going to be this year's MVP. But when it comes to Luka Dončić, honestly, the conversation needs to be bigger. So we're going to look past the whole awards debate for a minute and really dive into why his season isn't just incredible, it's truly historic. There's this weirdly comforting feeling when you watch Dončić play, isn't there? You know what's coming. Between those silky stepbacks and the constant discussions with the refs, his performance almost feels predetermined. And yet, it's absolutely impossible to look away. And this analogy, man, it is just perfect. It doesn't matter what kind of defense you throw at him, what the scheme is, Luka just methodically picks it apart. Kind of like that old TV detective, right? He'll probe, he'll test things out, maybe look a little flustered, but by the time the fourth quarter rolls around, you know he's already solved the case. You can pretty much set your watch to it. Before the game even starts, you just know you're getting the big points, the assists, the rebounds. That level of consistent elite production is what makes him one of the most reliable superstars in the entire league. And that's where things get a little weird. Despite this predictable, undeniable greatness, the conversation around him always seems to drift to what he isn't doing, instead of just appreciating what he so clearly is doing. So let's actually break down the case for what's really happening. Okay, so where do we even begin? Well, you gotta start with the raw data, because his numbers this season, they just demand to be appreciated on their own. No comparisons needed. And let's be real, these numbers are just outrageous. He's putting up almost 34 points a game, with over 8 assists and nearly 8 boards. These aren't just all-star numbers. We're talking about historic, all-time great kind of numbers, and he makes it look almost casual. But here's the context that makes his scoring even crazier. He is carrying a massive offensive load. A usage rate over 38% means the entire offense runs through him, constantly. And yet, he's still maintaining some of the best efficiency of his entire career. That is just astounding. Okay, so the individual stats are nuts, but honestly, that's only half the story. The really crucial part is how all that translates to winning, because that's where his value becomes absolutely undeniable. And this is where you really see what he means to this team. Before the season, most experts had them pegged as a play-in team, maybe even missing the playoffs altogether. Instead, he has single-handedly dragged them to the verge of a top 3 seed in a stacked, absolutely brutal Western Conference. And it's not just that they're winning, it's when they're winning. Right as the season is hitting its most important stretch, the team is playing its best basketball. They become the serious contender everyone was hoping they could be. And the engine behind it all? Luka hitting a completely different gear. During this incredible 11-1 run, he's averaging nearly 40 points a game on a mind-blowing 63% true shooting, which is just a fancy way of saying he's scoring with ridiculous efficiency. He's not just winning games, he's pulling the entire franchise into his gravitational pull. And you can feel how that trickles down to the locker room. One of his teammates put it perfectly, saying they're all just feeding off his rhythm. He sets the tone, and the entire team is rising to meet him. Now that's leadership. His coach nailed it. This isn't just a player on a hot streak, it's the kind of historic run that puts you in the same breath as the all-time greats. And the coach is clear, without Luka, this team isn't even in the same zip code as they are today. All right, but we all know there's a but, right? There's always been this one big criticism that follows Luka around. So, you know what? Let's just tackle it head on. You've heard it a million times. He's a magician on offense, but he's a liability on defense. It's the go-to argument that people use to kind of poke holes in his overall game. But here's the thing. When you actually look closer, that whole narrative really starts to fall apart. Now, is he ever going to be a lockdown defender? Probably not. But he's quietly turned himself into one of his team's most impactful defensive playmakers. I mean, just look at this. He leads the team in steals and in charges drawn. He's near the top in deflections, and he's even one of the best shot blockers on the team who isn't a center. These are all hustle stats, instinct plays that directly blow up what the other team is trying to do. But wait, there's one more piece to this defensive puzzle. It's a subtle detail, but it's one that has a massive impact on the game, and it's something almost everyone misses. This right here is the kicker. He is in the 98th percentile among all guards in defensive rebounding. Let that sink in for a second. That means he is one of the absolute best at his position at grabbing the ball after the other team misses. It's not flashy, but it's a total game changer. He single-handedly ends possessions and dramatically cuts down on second-chance points for the opponent. So you take the historic offense, you take the winning, you take this surprisingly effective defense, and when you put it all together, you realize his value goes way, way beyond any single award. You know, stats and analytics are great, but they can't fully capture what a player like this gives a team. It's the certainty, it's the confidence he instills in his teammates, his coaches, the whole organization, just by stepping onto the floor. That's something you just can't measure. Look, would an MVP trophy be a nice piece of hardware to validate this season? Of course, and he's more than earned his spot at the top of that conversation. But that's not the real story here. What he truly gives this franchise is a foundation. He's their identity, their system, and their future all rolled into one. And that is so much more valuable than any single award. So I'll just leave you with this to think about. In a league that's all about player movement and constant change, how do you even begin to measure the value of a player who isn't just on the team, but who is the team?